I'm Caspar Craven, and I'm a motivational leadership speaker, and my obsession is what does it take to achieve big, bold goals? What's the mindset, the leadership, the teamwork that we need to go and do that? And so I speak to audiences and provide thought-provoking ideas and a little bit of inspiration to say, how can you do things differently in our disrupted world? The first thing is that will, that desire to get onto the front foot and say, okay, we need to think differently about this. That whole mindset of saying, let's grow by 10% this year, 20% this year, and just focusing on incremental growth, that I believe is something that needs to be consigned to history. And every organization is being forced to say, okay, how do we disrupt ourselves? Because if you're not disrupting yourselves, then somebody else will do it for you. So I think that first thing is that recognition and that engagement across the organization, and clearly, with the senior leadership team saying, okay, we need to go and do this, and then engaging the rest of the team on that journey. So it's getting the hearts and the minds first, of getting people moving in that direction. And then I think the second thing is just unleashing all that human potential inside each and every organization. And that's one of the biggest insights that I've had out of my journey, that people only do things for their reasons, not for your reasons. And it's all about tapping into that, those humans, right? Understanding why people are doing things, getting them coming on that journey with you. And when organizations need to reinvent themselves, it's more important than ever that everybody plays their part. We recognize that diversity, those different thoughts, those different viewpoints, and just really getting everybody engaged. There were some scary statistics I saw this week. It was from Gallup. And it was saying that 60% of employees at work are emotionally disengaged. One, that's terrifying. Two, that's incredibly exciting because that's a very low bar as a leader to adopt what I would call a big, bold mindset, to get on the front foot and say, let's go and do things differently. Such a great question. What's my relationship with fear? Look, when I think about fear, where that takes me is that it's an emotion. And as human beings, we all experience fear, right? Some people are terrified of public speaking, some people are terrified of change, some people are terrified of, spiders, whatever the different thing is. We all have that different reaction. So in the past, when I've experienced fear, I felt that emotion acting on me, and there's definitely been situations when I felt that. And I think my relationship with it now is to get curious. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? And that's taken me down a whole path in terms of understanding how our emotions build up over time. I've done a lot of research, a lot of work into the whole field of trauma resolution, those patterns which we keep repeating out time over time. So it's trying to approach that emotion, but through a cognitive lens, and saying, okay, well, is this fear rational? What's actually going on here? So to try and really get underneath that. And look, I don't believe in throwing caution to the wind. I don't believe in sort of being paralyzed by fear and not doing anything. It's an emotion. Okay, well, what are we going to do with this emotion? What's it trying to tell us? What's actually going on here? Is it something that I've carried from the past, or is it something that's real in this moment? And so it's a piece of information, and therefore when you think about that piece of information for you, for your team, well, what's really going on? And it's those clues, those insights that can give you perhaps a different path to then make the next calls, the next steps forward. I've done a lot of thinking about some of the less obvious factors, and there's one huge one that really jumps out for me. And that is the impact of people's home life on being able to achieve big, bold goals at work. And it's an area that most organizations I see, they pay some attention to it, but it's very, very small. And I think equipping people with the relationship skills for how to deal with things at home is so, so important. personal story around this. When I was building one of my businesses before, I remember that I was working 16 to 18 hours a day and didn't see my wife, didn't see my kids. And look, we were not far away from getting divorced. And I would come home late in the evening. We'd have an argument. I would go to bed at one time. Nicola would go to bed several hours later. I'd wake up in the morning. It would be cold. It would be frosty. The last argument would still be ringing in my ears. And then I've got to go to work and do a good day's work. How can I do that? Because I'm consumed with all that stuff that's gone on before. So I think the key thing is for organizations to recognize that everybody has the home life. And I think most people do that, but then it's sort of giving people those skills that they can navigate their own relationships. So look, here's the good news, right? It's exactly the same skills that I believe we need to thrive at work as well. So really leaning into those, I think, because actually, when I went through the journey with my wife to get really aligned, creating our story together, then I still worked long hours. It didn't mean that suddenly I'm leaving at 5 o'clock in the evening, because I'm an incredibly driven person. I like working hard. But Nicola understood why I was doing that. We were working towards a shared common goal. We came up with a new story together as a family. And I think it's such a powerful enabler of unleashing that talent. And it's just not talked about. I think one of the things that I see a lot at the moment is the whole talk around different generations and the characterization of Gen X, millennials, and so on. And I think something that often I think gets lost in all of that is remembering that we're human beings, and the single best way to understand what's going on for the people inside your team is to go and talk to them, go and listen. I mean, it's one of the most fundamental skills that I talk about, is that ability to really listen, to understand, to go deep with what's going on for the people in your team, rather than just listening to the latest McKinsey report saying this is what Gen X, Gen Z, whatever it is, whatever they think. Go and talk to your people. So therefore, I think that there's often a danger that we miss some of that. So listening and then adapting together. That's what I think the game is. I've been very fortunate that I've had a whole bunch of different experiences. So I trained as a chartered accountant, became a director in an investment bank, being an entrepreneur, built and sold businesses, and then my 2 adventures sailing around the world, once competitively, once with my family. So I've been incredibly lucky that I've had a lot of different experiences. And I'm always fascinated by learning at what I call the extremes, because we learn far faster when we don't take ourselves out of our comfort zone. We don't always hear those lessons. We don't always hear those insights. So I think I've been very fortunate to do a whole range of different things, and that's given me quite a wide perspective on different things. So I think for me, that's been the process of experimentation. Where purpose then comes out of this is that I remember after I came back from my last sailing adventure in 2016, and I remember going and being invited to come and do an after dinner talk. It's for about 20 people, and I shared some stories, some insights, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, I'm going to do something fundamentally different with how I approach things with my life as a result of what you've just shared. That stopped me in my tracks, because suddenly I realized that if I can use the power of story and the power of insight to create fundamentally different choices for people, different outcomes for people, it's like, you know what, this is the most impactful thing I think I've ever done. I've built and sold businesses before, and that was great, and for me that was more about the money and the personal achievement, but suddenly realizing that I can have a difference, make a difference to other people. So I think I've iterated my way towards really purposeful work. And what I say now is this is what I want to do for the next 25 years, because if I can use the power of story to make a difference to other people, I don't think there's anything more meaningful that I can do with my time on this planet. So I think my iterative journey has led me to finding purpose, but it's only by doing lots of other things first. I do remember a very specific experience, which was a pivotal moment for me in terms of how I thought about teams and people. So in 2000, I was lucky enough to join the BT Global Challenge, described as the world's toughest yacht race. And this was the original high performance event. So there are 12 boats, they are absolutely identical. 18 crew on each boat, pulled from normal walks of life, and many people had no sailing experience at all beforehand, and had to come together to learn how to race around the world. And you're sailing 40 days at a time at sea, and the only difference is how you work together as human beings. So there were some legs where we'd be at sea for 6 weeks or so, and we would beat another boat by 10 seconds, which is the margins are just insane when you think about that. But the particular experience is that we were halfway around the world, and up until then we'd been doing really well. We were first into Boston, we were first around Cape Horn, and we were one of the contenders. We were racing around Wellington Harbour at the start of leg 4, and we crashed the boat. It's a 50-ton boat, and we literally drove it into the side of another boat doing 10 knots, and we put ourselves and them out of the race. Why did that happen? It happened because we were following an analogy that has been prevalent in business for a long, long time, and it's still prevalent in business a lot today, which is that if you focus on the numbers and get the numbers, then everybody will be happy and we will go even faster. We even had a saying for it: a fast boat is a happy boat. The only thing that mattered is boat speed. This whole race was a marathon, not a sprint. And what happened by the time we got halfway around the world is that as a crew, we were not listened to, not understood, burnt out, disillusioned, disengaged, much like that statistic from Gallup, 60% of people emotionally disengaged at work. It's not that a fast boat is a happy boat, it's a happy boat is a fast boat, where every single person in the crew feels listened to, understood, appreciated. The old school way of driving high performance is just numbers, numbers, numbers. We changed our methodology. After that, the second half of the race, we went from being what I would call a shouty boat to a silent boat, where everybody knew what the roles were of everybody else, and suddenly you just need like a small hand signal, and you could just feel this trust that was coming together, really starting working together. So we got past that burnout stage, but just by focusing on people rather than results is the primary thing. Nobody knows what the answer is. When we're going after big, bold goals, by definition, they are uncertain. No one has those answers. When our industries are being disrupted, when we think about, what do we do about sustainability? When we think about, people coming in with services which just disrupt us. It's about having that enough runway to be able to run those different experiments and to have that learning mindset, that curiosity to say, okay, how can I keep iterating through the different stages to find better answers than we've got today? So I think more curiosity and unleash that hunger inside your organization. There's people who really want to run and find those different experiments. So I think that's a cultural thing. But think like a scientist and run experiments, lots of them. I'm just reaching the end of writing my next book, which is basically it's a blueprint for the mindset for leaders in terms of how we need to think about the world differently. And then outside of that, I have an absolute obsession with mental health and how do we improve that. So I'm involved in some startups in that space. I believe that being able to unpick those trauma journeys, I think, can unleash so much of the talent we have inside our organizations, and planning some more sailing adventures as well. So